Hi, my name is Emily Rastick, and as a class we read Their Eyes Were Watching God. Their Eyes Were Watching God was an incredible story written by Zora Neale Hurston about a woman's struggle and journey to find true love. The author was able to make incredible references to the historically famous 1920s. The 1920s were famous for its music and dancing and carefree way of life. Janie and her third husband Tea Cake were able to experience this firsthand in the Muck. The Muck was an impressive community of hard-working African Americans, and at night the men enjoyed eating with friends and family, dancing and singing around a campfire, playing cards, and forgetting their days of worry. When groups of men decided to go out and eat, they generally had white or mixed waiters. This actually tends to be slightly ironic because even though the white men had less strenuous work to do, they were forced to serve the black men. This would have been extremely controversial because white men were never supposed to serve black men in that time. By this time, America had passed the 19th Amendment, but that did not mean that racism was over. In fact, it actually meant quite the opposite. The more active racists, such as the KKK or Ku Klux Klan, took it upon themselves to make sure that the black people still knew his or her place. The largest plot in the story comes at the tail end of the book when the hurricane hits and everything in Janie and Tea Cake's life is turned upside down. They have to struggle to survive the hurricane, but the biggest problem comes when Janie is flung into the water and Tea Cake heroically jumps in to save her and is bit in the face by a rabid dog. In the 1920s, no one except for doctors really knew what rabies was. Even today, some people do not know the severity of this infection, and we still don't have a cure for it. There is a vaccine, but if treatment is not given to the exposed person in the first day or two, there is little to no chance of survival. This lack of knowledge was a major cause in the death of Tea Cake, but the inability to communicate was also a large factor. If there had been any form of newspapers or television news, the people in the Muck would have had plenty of time and warning to get to higher ground. The only warning that the people in the Muck received was from the Indians, who were going off of a gut feeling in the lay of the land. And unfortunately, the people didn't listen to the warning. All of the characters in the story would have had a much better chance of survival if they had a reliable source informing them of what was happening in the world. However, because of the time period, that technology was not available for people to use. Three of the most impactful symbols throughout the story are Janie's hair and head rags, the pear tree, and the rabid dog. When Janie was married to her second husband, Joe, she was never free. Janie had long, gorgeous locks of hair, and Joe always forced her to hide it in rags, and Joe hid Janie in the store. This assertion of dominance from men to women is very prominent throughout history. In fact, even Tea Cake, a very nice and respectable husband, felt the need to assert his dominance when Miss Turner's brother was trying to impress Jamie. Sexism and male dominance has been a relevant problem in government and in the world ever since the beginning of the human race. The pear tree was a large symbol when Janie was a young character. She was hopeful, and she saw the world as a blooming flower. She also saw love that way, and she stayed that way until her second husband, Joe, broke her. He broke her spirit and killed her on the inside. This goes back to the sexism and male dominance brought up in the previous statement. He felt the need to make sure that she would never love another man while she was still married to him. This tended to happen to lots of husbands who were so self-conscious that he was unable to trust the woman that had confessed her undying love for him. Men have quite the reputation for breaking his wife's spirit and ruining her joy. The rabid dog symbolizes the pure hatred in the world. The rabid dog was willing to bite and kill any human being that crossed its path, even though it had no reason to kill him or her. This can be connected with hating people because of his or her religion, height, weight, body and facial structure, and race. Some people have absolutely no reason to hate other people, but it seems to cause wars all over the world. Armies such as the Crusades killed thousands of innocent people because their mind told them to, but there never seemed to be a reason as to why they couldn't live in peace. The protagonist of the story, Janie, is a very interesting character. She is able to view the world a little bit differently. Because she is a mixed skin color, she doesn't quite fit in with either black or the white people. She grew up with a white family and a black grandmother, and that is rare for black people, but she considers herself to be one of both of the communities, and that was impossible for this time period. She doesn't understand what white people are generally raised in better circumstances, and she also doesn't learn the boundary that was dividing the two races in the early 1900s. Janie was also raised to be a strong black woman. She wasn't raised to be dismissed. She was raised to be the center of attention, and she grew up wanting to find true love. That was more than what most people could hope for in this time period, Most people were forced to marry for money so that he or she was able to survive, but Janie wanted love. In her first marriage, she actually did something that most women would have never had the courage to do in this time. She was so unhappy with her marriage that she left with a man that she thought would make her happy. In the 1920s, it was unheard of that a woman would leave her husband to go off with another man, but Janie did. There are many more references throughout the story Their Eyes Were Watching God, and I could not possibly name them all. Zora Neale Hurston did an incredible job of drawing all of these historical facts and feelings into one story and an amazing plotline.